So where does the cookie lie? I didn't know what an invoice was. Like, it's either working or it's not. Right time, right place. Going, how do we scale this globally? What is my why? I like to win. Not like a normalish wage to lottery winner. There was a real emptiness, like, within me. Thinking that I was having a heart attack. Anxiety cripples you. Feeling pressure to be a leader. To be more authentic. I'm not working for myself, like my own personal gain. I'm working for them.
The Hub CP podcast.
It's dead simple.
We're here to inspire entrepreneurs
and celebrate rebels.
We want to provoke reaction, share ideas,
colour your grey cells and entertain.
Nothing's off limits.
From Cooper Parry,
the rebels of accountancy.
This is the Hub CP podcast.
Let's do it.
I am very excited to be joined by James MacFarlane. How you doing, James?
Hi, I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, it's great
Thanks for having me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. James, lots of things we want to talk about today. I think for me, the things that I've got to really explore with you is the whole growing fast. It's something when everybody starts a business, it's that obsession, isn't it? You know, fast growth lists. Everybody's always talking about the next fast growth business. And so what it actually means to be at the helm running a founder-led fast-growth business. I want to know what the experience is like and some of the nuggets that you can basically talk to us about today. Something else, though, when I was reading about you that I found really interesting was the fact that you've been doing this for a long time. So you actually started running a business from a very young age. I believe, was it pre-university? Was it actually at school?
Yeah, I used to mess around with a few kind of, businesses is a strong word, but you know, entrepreneurial ideas when I was like 14, 15, for sure.
So, I mean, when people start businesses, you know, in earlier years, some of them, you know, are nice little side hustles and what have you, but what was mind-blowing about you was that even during university, you created one business that became was it the UK's biggest mothering network?
Yeah, so that was just after university.
Okay.
But yeah, so
so tell us, just give us a quick overview. Let's start from the beginning. Let's just get a feel for, you know, some of the hustles that you've done and how they've become bigger businesses over your sort of formative years.
Yeah, and I think look, the early days was, if I look back at it, it was really important to learn how business worked, right? So if you look at when I started, when I was like 14, 15, I didn't know what an invoice was. You know, I didn't know how to charge people. I didn't know how to get money. And it was all about learning how business works, you know, all the boring stuff, like how do you charge people for things? How do you submit your tax returns? Things like that. But yeah, like when I was 15, what I was doing was I was importing iPod skins from China for like £1 and selling them on eBay for about 6 or 7. And I was just doing that basically for fun and a bit of pocket money. And that's kind of like what got me like hooked to starting businesses, right? Because I'd created something that had worked. And that's what I loved. I love building things that work. And businesses, you get this amazing haptic feedback. Like it's either working or it's not, right? And you have these KPIs that you can look at that you can go, well, I'm profitable or I'm not. So yeah, I did that, and then I went to university, studied business economics in Leicester. Came out of that, and I dabbled in a few different things, but just kind of like what I knew when I came out of university was I don't want to go down the normal route of like getting a job and you know progressing through some sort of like promotion system or like organization that had been set up. And it wasn't that I've got anything against that, it just didn't feel right to me.
I mean, as you're saying it, there's a pain on your face there, you're really just muttering those words. So you clearly, right from the word go, there was a big entrepreneurial streak in you. Tell us, therefore, when things got serious. So which business did you start to think, right, actually, I've got a skill for this. Something's happening here, and I think actually this is something I really need to pursue. So I came out of university. So the timeline's really, you know, if I go back, the timeline's really complicated. But I came out of university and I did a few different things, and I met my current business partner, Scott. And Scott came to me and said, look, I've got £1 million and I've heard making money online
is something you can do, you know, and I've seen that you know how to do this because I've been interacting with communities. So he said, do you want to come help me, you know, start a business together? So I obviously said yes. I was 22. He had a huge amount of money for me, like at the time, to start a business.
I mean, £1 million.
I know,
Let's
exactly.
take a little step back there.
I'm really lucky to have met him, you know.
Lucky, but you'd obviously done some great stuff, though. I mean, let's be honest. It's obviously your reputation had helped you to get in that position, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'd run quite a few different small businesses that had worked, right? And they didn't lose money in it. By small businesses, I don't mean I'd started a shop. It was all website and it was online. So you had low barrier to entry and you could set up these different things and make passive income from them. Yeah. So we kind of met, we created this partnership, and we went on to create and acquire the largest, or one of the largest mothering networks in the UK. So babynames.co.uk, pregnancy.co.uk, babies.co.uk, mum.com. We also did we did a deal with Random House to create the best-selling baby names book in the UK. That was like crazy, and it was all run by me, right? So Scott was like, I showed Scott the idea. We said there's, you know, a good amount of like scope in this, and then I put together the content producers, the mums, the doctors, and basically put out the websites, and, you know, deal with Random House or anyone else, or like an advertiser like Johnson & Johnson or Toys R Us that wants to work with us. Yeah. So that was, after meeting Scott, that was our kind of first foray into essentially creating content. I was young, very ambitious, and wanted to go, what's the next evolution here? You know, like, what's the progression here? Because something that I like, that I kind of said earlier, is like creating. So it's always moving forward. And what we noticed was a lot of people at that time, it was probably about 2010, 2011, were moving over to mobile, right? It was about the same sort of time that my mum got a smartphone. And we talk about like right time, right place. You know, I always used to look back and go, oh, if only I could start a business when the internet was created, right? Well, this was it, right? Like smartphones got heavily adopted in like a 3-year period. And now we take them for granted. But then they weren't. You know, you were migrating from a very, like, you know, like a Nokia to an Apple iPhone, right? Or a BlackBerry to an Apple iPhone or Android. Yeah. And so what we decided to do was like pivot our business to, instead of focusing on giving out content for free, it was about monetizing content behind a paywall. And for us, the perfect partner for that were mobile phone carriers. So what we wanted to do was kind of partner the power of the mobile phone carrier and give them extra revenue for doing it, right? Because they have access to all these customers and all these potential people that might want to pay for something, but they've seen a huge share of their market segment for content like kind of leave. So we approached EE, and we said, this is what we'd like to do. And kind of the rest is history. We moved from that first partnership with EE, moved us from like a business that was generating £300,000 per year to, you know, 4 or 5 million. Wow. And that sort of scalability in business is like crazy.
Sorry, over how long did that go from X to Y then?
Probably about 1.5 years.
Jeez,
so it was like mad. It was madness. Yeah, it was. Keep in mind, at this point, I'm 23, 24, dealing with this, right? Suddenly, I've gone from running a mothering website to dealing with one of the UK's largest networks, right? And so the next question becomes, well, how do I repeat this? So we then did it with the rest of the UK networks, and that moved us from like a 4 million to like a 10 million, right, turnover. And then, you know, we looked at going, how do we scale this globally? And that's where we're at now, right?
And we're talking about PM Connect now?
Yeah, PM Connect here. Yeah, that same business that ran the mothering website is the same business that runs the mobile payments and kind of strategic relationships now. And it all came from like me and a couple of other people working from our bedrooms, like hustling, you know?
Okay.
Celebrating Rebels.
This is the Hub CP podcast.
So I'm sure everyone is going to be wanting me to start to delve into the lessons from Fast Growth, because that is off the charts in terms of what you're talking about. And I just love to understand, what was it like going through that, and what did you learn just through that whole, what I'd imagine is a chaotic experience, an amazing experience, but a chaotic experience. But the question that I really want to just quickly discuss with you is coming back to the beginning a little bit. Is entrepreneurs? Do you think it is something that is born in you, or do you think you can learn it? What is your thought in terms of where the cookie lies with that question?
It's a really interesting question. So,
and I don't even know if that's the correct where the cookie lies. Is that actually? I don't know if that actually makes any sense, James. But let's just go with it. Yeah. If it doesn't, it should be. I quite like it.
So where does the cookie lie?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
Where does the cookie lie? Hashtag. Where does the cookie lie?
So from my side, what do I believe? I don't believe you have to be born with it. I think if I look at my past, and this is where I get a bit deep, and it's not meant to be too deep.
Let's go deep, James.
So my dad was an entrepreneur,
yeah.
right? So I was immediately as a child really interested in knowing how things like that worked, because I had that exposure, and that wasn't because of me like being born being an entrepreneur. I was born into being able to find out about it, right? And then the second thing happened so when I was 12, my dad passed away, which was really sad. And I think it did two things. First of all, it kind of like showed me the harsh reality of your life, right? Because you learn that as an adult, but as a child, you're normally kind of stuck in this, like, things are the way they are. And like, you grow up with your family and you grow up in your school and, that's your world. Whereas like what I got was like a shock to the system that kind of really showed me like, you've got to make your own way, like in the world, and bad things do happen. And secondly, my life got turned upside down, right? So my dad was the key, earner for the family. Yeah. So I suddenly went from like almost this like middle class lifestyle to, basically counting pennies, right? Because we had to look out for everything, and I think that gave me a motivation to create and kind of provide, and so. You can see that as quite a pivotal moment that gave me drive, into my teens and into my 20s to kind of do that. And that it is an inherent interest of mine, but like sometimes you need a catalyst to really push you forward. So then what you see is like when I was 15, when I was through uni, and when I came out of uni, I was really driven to like create my own path in life. And that definitely kind of shaped it. So would I say I was born with it? No. What I was born with is quite a logical mind, I would say, and maybe not an interest in how things work, right? But that could even be my environment. But then my kind of childhood really did shape my interests. And I wouldn't say everyone has to go through what I went through, in order to get it. But it was definitely crafted by my environment. Yeah,
and I'm very sorry to hear that, but very grateful for you to sharing that with us, because it's clearly, as you said, being the thing that really stoked that fire in you, which is, I think, one of the most interesting things about you, that ambition you can see. And it's in a very nice way, but it's a very infectious ambition, which is why I'm so keen to interview you, because it's obviously been created. It's something that has been used to create something very special in what you've done with your businesses that you've created.
Nothing's off limits.
This is the Hub CP podcast.
You're talking about literally, everyone talks about the hockey stick, but we're talking about off the scale in terms of... What was the experience like of growing so fast?
Like, I look back to that period in work and go, that was crazy, right? You're literally going from like 10, 15k a month to like 2 to like £1 million a month in revenue. Like, it's insane. And as like a 23-year-old going through that, or 24-year-old, like even like crazier. It gives you a real different perspective on growth. And suddenly you go from like a few £100,000 per year to like 5, 6, 7 million. And it gives you a perspective on the partnerships that you need to kind of create in order to get to where you need to be. So in terms of lessons, it's about trying to look at your business with perspective of growth. So you need to be consistently pushing. You need to be consistently pushing for growth. And also you need to make sure that you step back and go, am I just pushing in like a really small kind of like, like box, right? And do I just need to expand that, right? And for us, we decided, we had the mothering network, we decided to expand the box by pivoting. Whereas like we might have gone from 300 to 400 to 500k, but like by just kind of pivoting and using the talents we had in content, we went from 300 to 5 million.
It's almost
right?
you got out of the box.
Yeah, exactly. Box. So it's for me, it's like, I hate the business phrase like think outside the box. I'm not going to say that, but it's about perspective. It's about consistently challenging your perspective and consistently pushing.
Okay, so we've got it seems to me then the key thing there is you've got to be very real with yourself in terms of what you really need to do to achieve where you want to go. Right?
Yeah, and it's
because you could have just carried on doing that and making that bigger, but actually decided to use the word pivot to go for something completely different.
Yeah, it's consistent challenging.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think so. I talked about the positive. The positives was that growth and the perspective you get on scalability. So now that I've learned that lesson, I think I can go into any business anywhere and go, if they're at 100k, I can move them, to where I've been, because my perspective has changed and what you need to do.
Inspiring entrepreneurs.
This is the Hub CP podcast.
What about, I'm guessing then, to service that level of top line growth, you had to bring in a lot of people to therefore help drive that. So what was it like with all of a sudden employing, I'd imagine, you said 2 to 3 people when you were starting with the mothering network, I'd imagine a lot of people as if things started to grow.
Yeah, so, yeah, it's a strange question, right? Because I'll walk you back. So when I was 25, we had 10 people in the business. And that year we did in profit £10 million, right? So 1 million, EBITDA, £10 million. Wow. And so I went from like 24, just like essentially getting paid like a normalish wage, right? Probably good for my age, to lottery winner, right? And with that comes a lot of challenges, right? Because people see that. To the outside world, you're incredibly successful and you're getting, I think, recognition, and you're getting a lot of like encouragement from third parties, right? And what that does from a human level, and it's easy for me to look back, is like breed arrogance, right? Like there's a feeling of like whatever I do turns to gold. Right?
And did you, and as a young guy, did you feel like that?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's really hard, right? Because you're getting all this positive reinforcement externally, when actually what I've done is I created a 10-man business. Making 10 million is great, and it's a fantastic figure, but it's not a scalable business. A scalable business needs to be able to scale people as well as revenue, right? And yeah, I definitely suffered with that arrogance.
In what way?
In the way that I thought I was right all the time,
okay.
And when you're a small team, you're making all the decisions. There's a lot of pressure there. You're getting a lot of positive reinforcement from third parties. Yeah, it's easy to see why you think you're always right. There's a stat which like 80% of lottery winners go broke in like, it's something like 2 years or something.
It is insanely high, isn't it?
Yeah.
So why is that?
It's because you get lifestyle creep, right? So you buy this and you buy that, and suddenly you're going to, instead of going to Audi, you're going to Marks Spencer's every day, right? Instead of like driving a Ford Fiesta, you're driving something. You're going around in your helicopter, right? Now I didn't get to that stage, but like you get this euphoric buzz where like anything is possible, and you kind of like, for me it felt like I'd beaten the game. I'd beaten whatever like the world was, right? Like I'd solved it. And I think past that, and this is where you look at the catalyst, it was like there was this emptiness, right? Like, so I think a lot of people assume that it's money that makes you happy, but it's not. It's like I started to realize that there were a lot of intangibles, and actually getting rich wasn't that great. Like, I'm not the guy that's gonna like get a helicopter. I'm the guy that like, I just like to get from A to B, right? I don't mind taking EasyJet, and I think there was an expectation that more money would make me happier. And so what I found was, again, I go back to the analogy, when you're climbing the hill, you don't know what to do at the top. There was a real emptiness like within me, and I would say for about a year, I lived with that emptiness. I didn't know why I was waking up in the morning. Like I didn't know what was my why. Like wow. It was really unfulfilling. And yeah, I'm very privileged to have been able to give them the chance to go through that and realize that. But the catalyst for me is like when I started to go, why am I doing this? Like, why am I going to work each day? Because you get to the point where like I could have retired. or like done whatever I wanted. So it's like I started to be a lot more self-critical, and I started to go, well, yeah, obviously I made some good decisions, but I'm not right all the time. And for me, it was like, so why am I doing this? Why am I trying to achieve? And it was like I had to come down and work out, like, again, what is my why? And for me, I settled on 2 or 3 things. The first is, like, and I think you get this in any entrepreneur, I like to win, right? Like, winning is fun. It's like, anyone that follows, like, a sport, they like winning, right?
Course, yeah.
So it's like, why am I getting up? I like to win, and that's what I want to do with this entity. The second thing is, like, well, if I'm not doing it for money, what am I doing it for, right? And for me, there was a huge intangible benefit so it's really hard to measure, but in my head I've got a graph, right, which is like rewarding the people that help me get there.
Yes.
And it sounds really fucking cheesy, right? It sounds really cheesy, but those two, like winning and then focusing on rewarding the people that like helped me get there, was like why I then got back into focus.
Celebrating rebels.
This is the Hub CP podcast.
So having had the big why moment and now knowing exactly what you now want to do moving forward, how has that enabled you to create something that has signed that enormous deal with the NBA, which is now giving you reach to millions of people in continents you probably never thought you'd even be in?
Yeah, so, okay, look at it like this from a progression point of view for me, right? So I started off manually writing baby names, right? Then I partnered with carriers for lifestyle content, so like fitness, that like content that I would build, or gaming content that we would license. Then we went to like short form content, which was kind of like working with the WWE or Eurosport to give short videos. What is the most obvious progression of that? It is long form content. It is partnering the carriers with the biggest long form content brands like on the planet. And then you look at the really large content producers, right? So you've got like companies like the NBA who make all their money selling linear TV. But if you're anything like me, I'm not watching much linear TV anymore, right? So there's this kind of like pattern where linear TV is slowly getting less demand, and they've moved over to basically providing a Netflix of the NBA, NBA League Pass, but they don't know how to sell it to consumers. So for us, like, take the largest sports brands, partner them with the largest carriers. What do they get from each other? The sports brand gets the distribution from basically the OGs of D2C. They take this boring thing and they make people pay a subscription for it, right? And they kind of like brand it. So you get the distribution from the NBA because they're struggling to sell it outside of their core markets. And then from a carrier point of view, well, they want this kind of like irrational emotional tie. Right? So what is the most irrational emotional thing? It's sport. Like, have you ever like got so angry because something's happened in sport that like, so you then...
Leicester City being not getting the Champions League 2 years in a bloody...
Exactly.
On the last season, I can't get my head around it still.
So exactly, right? So you partner these really large sports brands with these really large carriers, and suddenly they're both getting something out of the relationship. The carrier gets to kind of like connect or associate their brand with the sports brand, and the sports brand gets more customers from the carrier.
Yeah, okay. Wow. So, but that has absolutely transformed the business, hasn't it? In terms of where you are now, the amount of people that you employ, the turnover, I'd imagine, has gone to another level.
Yeah, it's been really crazy. I think it's been a really big learning curve, right? So we've never done this size of contract before. This is like the big boy leagues now. So working with the NBA on previous smaller kind of pieces of content was like quite easy. There was a lot of freedom. When you work with the NBA for, their crown jewels, there's a lot of like time that needs to go into them to show them what you're doing.
Yeah.
And from a carrier point of view, suddenly every carrier wants to work with us. So we need to work out how to qualify the deals better and make sure that we've got the technical resource in order to do it. It is really pivotal. It's the next growing stage for us, right? If you look at like the stage of the business from like 3 people to 10 people to 30 people, this is now the next growing stage for PM Connect. And it's it's challenging. There's problems that I've never dealt with, but that's what I love, Yeah,
so you're going into the realm of the unknown.
Nothing's off limits.
This is the Hub CP podcast.
In terms of yourself, James, when I'm thinking you evolving as a leader, as a person, how do you now, as a CEO, as a founder, differ from yourself, let's say back in your early to mid 20s? What has been the biggest change in you?
Yeah, so I put a lot of time into, and I think, I don't know how many entrepreneurs do this, but I put a lot of time into figuring out myself. So if you take me from 20 to 24, I was this like confident person with like a dream and a vision. You go from like 24 to like 28, right? You then, or 27, you had someone who was a lot less fulfilled, and that resulted in, I got a lot of anxiety, right? Because it like kind of transformed me. You start to doubt yourself. So anxiety, a certain level of like depression.
But why did you doubt yourself if everything was going so well?
Because it's how you feel inside, right? Like what you don't see is like when you have this level of success, you get disconnected from reality, and suddenly the problems you're dealing with you've got no one to speak to about. There was a pivotal moment that I still remember as an entrepreneur. So I do interviews all the time, right? Like I interview other people like for certain jobs.
Yeah.
And as someone who finds culture really important, it's really important for me to like talk to people and find out what they're like. So I sat down for this one interview with a coder who was a really nice chap. There was nothing untoward. And 10 minutes into kind of explaining just what the business was and what it does, I had a panic attack. Right, but at that time I didn't know it was a panic attack. So what are you dealing with? You're dealing with like shortness of breath. You can't like concentrate, right? And you're losing your train of thought. So in that moment, I got up and I walked out. Right,
really?
and
Wow.
I just said I've got to go.
You just couldn't carry on.
Right, yeah. And I remember going into my office, and I was standing there panicking. I laugh because it seems stupid now, but it's not a fun experience to go through, right? I remember sitting in my office thinking that I was having a heart attack, right? Like genuinely I thought I was having a heart attack, because it's very similar symptoms to a panic attack, and I've never dealt with that before. I remember looking out and thinking, should I this is how sad it was, right? I remember thinking, should I call an ambulance? And I thought, I don't want to make a fuss, I'll just go down with the shit. So I was literally just sitting in my office thinking that I was having like a heart attack. And yeah, I still remember it. I remember the day. And that was the first time I dealt with... like anyone, I'd always felt a bit nervous, right? Like a bit excited, a bit nervous before anything. But that, I'd never dealt with panic attack. And it's something that I think changed my perspective on anxiety as well. Because what I had within my workforce is like, I had people who said they're anxious.
Yeah.
And before then I was like, oh, you just feel a bit nervous.
Yes.
Right? But actual anxiety is not that. Actual anxiety cripples you, right? And I think for me, that experience and then learning about what that experience was meant that when I saw it in other people, I could identify it, and like, it's not like I'm going to go in and white knight and go, oh, don't have it, breathe, right? It's just like I can be understanding about how they might feel in certain situations, right? So it's not that I'm no longer anxious, but I understand if I'm being anxious, and I understand what I should do, right?
Brilliant. Okay. Again, thanks so much for sharing that with us, because we've all been there in terms of anxiety. And as you say, it's not just you're nervous. Anxiety is horrific, and it is crippling. I think the word you used there is bang on. It is crippling, and it completely wipes you completely off your feet when it happens.
Inspiring entrepreneurs.
This is the Hub CP podcast.
In terms of authenticity and having the confidence to be who you are, how has that changed over the past few years? How in terms of how you may be perceived, do you think has that changed with how you are maybe now? Yeah,
and it probably ties into this whole anxiety thing, right? Like, what was I feeling at the time? I was feeling pressure to be a leader, right? And what you see what people expect out of a leader. But what you ended up with, and I use this analogy, is like a tinfoil man, right? So like, he looks really shiny on the outside, but like, you poke him and he kind of collapses. Yeah. And one of the things that I do to like work is be more authentic. I go, I'm not going to pretend to be this person. I'm just going to speak from like what I think and what I feel. And that doesn't mean I don't plan things, you know, but like instead of giving a presentation where I've got a kind of like proposed script, right? I might have a few bullet points, but what I won't do is memorize what I'm going to say.
Okay.
I'll get in there and it needs to feel organic to me. And I use that word a lot now, organic.
Yep.
Like I'll only talk about things.
And to you that means, what does organic mean?
It means like it's natural, you know, there's not smoke and mirrors,
Yeah.
right? And it's also worked into my negotiating style, right? So like my negotiating style is outcome based. And I think like everyone would say it's outcome based, but it's like the way that I'll approach a negotiation is like, I'll go in with the first proposal, right? And that person will go, no, right? And what a lot of people will do is come back, revise the proposal and send it back. But what I do is like, I go, why have you said no? You know, like I go, I understand the answer's no, but like, what's the mechanism behind it?
Interesting,
right?
yeah.
And then what it does is it means that when I go back, I can create an outcome that works for them. Because the no might not just be because of like they don't like the presentation. It might be because of something above that. I'll give you a really good example of something which hopefully I'll probably bring it down, but like if it's too high level or too low level, let me know. So when we deal with carriers, we say we would like to host the payment page, right? Because it's for the MBA and we need the data for that page, right? And when you go to a carrier and say I would like to host the payment page, they'll typically say no, right?
Because they want to have that.
They want to host it, right? And you just get like battered yes or no, right? And you go back going, no, we have to. They go, no, right? But like, if you actually go behind that, you go like, why are you saying no? And typically it's because of risk, right? It's because risk to their customers. So instead of going, right, I need it, you go, well, you're worried about risk. How do I de-risk you, right? So here's a third party that I will use in order to verify and audit everything that I do that you're happy with.
Yeah.
So suddenly you get the hosting, but you also get the de-risking. So you create the outcome that both of you want.
Got it.
Yeah.
Good example of that. Okay.
Celebrating Rebels.
This is the Hub CP podcast.
So you're 33.
Yeah.
So mind-boggling already in terms of what you've done. I'm sure there's loads of exciting things happening with PM Connect moving forward, but just paint to us what there is in store now then for both yourself personally and the business in the years ahead. What is the next thing to really strive for and go for?
Yeah, so first thing I've got to say is get married.
And he's looking at his lovely fiancé's.
I can't. This is why she's here, to audit that. Secondly,
huge congratulations on that.
Thank you. So, look, PM Connect is my full-time focus, and there's an emotional tie. There's a lot of people in that business that I'm not working for myself, like my own personal gain. I'm working for them, right? And that's the first thing. And then what I do outside of that is I've invested in one company and I advise on another. Yeah. The one that I invested in is a NLP AI company that helps you basically learn quicker.
What does that mean?
Neuro language processing, artificial intelligence.
Wow.
Basically, what
Sounds
it does is it takes like the English word and summarizes it well, right? And it's existed for quite a while, but there's not been a use case. So, why am I working with them? The team are young, they are very ambitious, and I get quite a lot of personal satisfaction from teaching them, right? Helping them go from like a 10-person business to a 100-person business. Yeah. You know, and they've just been accepted by YC.
Wow.
So they're going through the YC accelerator, right? So like, I found them...
For people who don't know what that means, that is a big damn deal, isn't
it is. Like, as soon as they did it, as soon as they got accepted, people started trying to throw money at them, you know? But like, I found these guys 2 years ago because they reached out and I was like, you guys are really smart and like, you're really ambitious and I want to help you. And that was all what it was.
They sound amazing.
Yeah, they would love it. Yeah. And the second project that I do some advisory on is like, it's quite a strange one. So it's a cryptocurrency project.
Hear lots about that.
I know. And I think cryptocurrency is seen by the general market as a scam, right? I could go into that, but I won't. But basically, So what they're doing is they're taking a transactional layer on the cryptocurrency Ethereum. They launched on Tuesday and they've taken 30% of that transactional layer, right? Like in one day. Keep in mind, Ethereum settles 14 billion pounds or like dollars per month. So they've taken 30% of that overnight and it's going up, right? Yes. And so like, what do I get out of working with those two companies? I'm not doing it for money. I'm doing it for, I like to see tech scaled. I like to see solutions work and win.
Yeah.
I also get a huge amount of perspective from working with different companies when I'm looking at PM Connect, right? Because I've been in this bubble from 21 and my perspective has been PM Connect, PM Connect, PM Connect. And suddenly when you look at other businesses and you help other businesses, you get to see what you're good at, you get to see what you're really bad at, right? And so then I can use that knowledge to go, it makes sense for me to get involved here, but for here I might need some outside help.
Wow, okay, so the advisory side then is something that clearly is really exciting you in terms of not just with your own businesses then, but helping others. And it's not just about the money, that's really interesting. It's about the whole experience of what you get from that. Honestly,
it's not about money. So for me, I will only advise on projects I genuinely find interesting, rather than, advising on a project that's going to make me, the next Bill Gates. Yeah. Like that, if it wasn't interesting to me, I wouldn't do it. And it's quite funny because cryptocurrency is like, it's this really funny beast that is all transactional. So to the average person, it's really boring. Yeah. But to me, the mechanism and like what it represents is really interesting. Yeah. So I get this kind of like, the actual win that I get is this inside kind of like look at like some of the cleverest people in the world, right? Like the people that I'm working with on this project, like I'll speak to for 30 minutes. I have to spend 24 hours in a dark room processing what they're saying. They're so clever. That deep? Yeah, it's like insane. They're all like ex poker stars, like developers and strategic kind of like partners.
So they're so you have to unwangle it. It's just like
they're so smart, and that experience is better than paying me for like anything. Like being able to have access to that sort of person to know what they're talking about, that's what gets me up. And that's what I mean is in like, if you go back to your initial question, like how's your perspective kind of changed as like a leader? I'm not looking for how much money I can get out of someone. I am looking to evolve like my learning and my perspective. That is the most valuable resource to me. Yeah. Rather than going, this person will make me X, or I'll invest in this to get X back. It's what can I learn from this person?
Yeah. Nothing's off limits.
This is the Hub CP podcast.
James, this has been fascinating, and I think what's been so great is just thank you for being so honest and sharing stuff that some people wouldn't want to share. And I think that's real testimony to the kind of just the real person that you are. I think what makes you so likeable, and why we're so chuffed to have had you on this podcast, especially being as bloody busy as you are. Now, I'm going to put you on the spot here. This is the final question, so I'm going to talk really slowly. But for anybody watching who is going through the pains of fast growth, or whatever it is with their business right now, what is the biggest piece of advice you can give to any entrepreneur right now who, like you, has got that ambition to want to do it, to really help them make it, or to get as far as they want to go and achieve everything they want to achieve? What is that one gem that you could give?
Challenge yourself and challenge your opinions. So
challenge yourself and challenge your opinions.
Yeah, and so to elaborate on that, when you're thinking in a box, you'll always stay there. Yeah. And it's not about think outside the box. It's just like make sure you're constantly changing your perspective. Like when you speak to partners, why are they acting like they are? Rather than they're wrong. You know, so many people in this world are defensive. Whereas what I do is go, if I talk to someone or something's not working, I don't go, I'm right now. I go, why is it not working? I challenge it. And I'll go, why is this partner not responding how I thought, right? Rather than going, they're wrong or this is going to work, right? It's about constructive challenging of your ideas and your perspective. And as soon as an entrepreneur, you look back and go, my perspective hasn't changed for the last 6 months. Your business is probably due like a perspective change.
So we've got a new hashtag here, get the fuck out the box.
Yeah.
James, it's been absolutely brilliant to talk to you. Thanks a million. You're an absolute star.
Thank you.
And can't wait to hear of all the amazing things that you'll be doing in life. And congratulations on getting married, and hope you have a fantastic time next year.
Thank you.
With Lydia.
Cheers.
Cheers.
At Cooper Parry, we love feedback.
Tell us what you'd like to hear.
Go to cooperparry.com/podcast.
This has been a Hub CP production, curated by Cooper Parry.
The Rebels of Accountancy.